All right, what's up, everybody? This is Cody, aka DFSProdigy, coming to you live. Talk about the upcoming Draftkings slate with my friend Daily Fantasy Talkshow. We're basically just going to go over our core picks on who we like in each position, like we do every week for the main slate. And let's just start it off with Daily Fantasy Talkshow. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going good, dude. Having fun with this NFL slate. I actually ended up breaking even today on the Steelers game, so pretty good considering I started off so bad not having the Steelers defense, but making our way back.
Exactly. So that game was weird to me, but I feel like this main slate we'll do a lot better at, and it's more straightforward than
Oh yeah.
the Steelers and the Ravens, as y'all can tell with RG3 Chase McCorley starting. So let's just start off with quarterbacks. Who are you liking at the very top, my man?
Yeah, I mean, up top's kind of tricky this week. All depends on how the game plan goes for Russell Wilson. They get up early, which a lot of people think they will. He may not have to throw as much, so I'm kind of staying off of there. Kyler's shoulder is a bit effed up, as we talked about before, Cody. So I'm gonna stay off of Kyler Murray this week. I do like Deshaun Watson a little bit. We did see the Colts defense be a little bit more vulnerable last week against the Titans. Derrick Henry ran all over them, so we'll see how they rebound. Herbert's not too bad against New England, but I really like Aaron Rodgers this week going against Philly. I think their secondary is still way too banged up for Aaron Rodgers not to have a field day.
So that's where I'm going to, as I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers because we saw Lillard basically get back and he looks good. He got you a TD and his admin looks completely fine to me, even though he got a huge hit against him. And Devontae Adams, he's a man amongst boys on the field. We can obviously look to him, Robert Tonian. He's looked good. He's come back normal, being a roommate of George Kittle. He looks like he's in recent form, looks great. And all in all, I'm all in on the 6,800 Aaron Rodgers. I think that price is way too cheap when you have just a Herbert who's priced higher than him. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a little better than Herbert, to be honest. I mean, like you said, Kyler Murray's shoulder, I don't trust his shoulder, especially against the Rams when we have Aaron Donald who could easily hit him. Russell Wilson, you can obviously go to him at the very top with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Other than that, I'm mainly looking at Aaron Rodgers in that price range. If I wanted to go down, I would look at Fitzpatrick. You know that he's going to sling the ball as much as he can. He's not going to carry on the field. He's just going to throw it downfield as much as possible to Devontae Parker. And I obviously like that combo at 60 or at 6,000. What are you liking in the lower price range?
Yeah, and this price range is interesting. I mean, I think Tua is going to be good to go this week, which kind of kills the Miami kind of stack for me. If Fitzpatrick ends up being the starter, I do like stacking Fitzpatrick, Devontae Parker, and Gesicki. I think those are a good stack. If Tua goes, Jakeem Grant comes in play a bit, going against the Cincinnati secondary that's a bit lackluster. But in this range, just not great guys this week. Philip Rivers, I mean, he's questionable going against Houston. I think he'll be a lone guy, but he just really hasn't been as good recently. And then Derek Carr is the last guy I'll talk about here. I think against the Jets, I think they're going to be a run-heavy game script. So depending on whether Josh Jacobs plays or if it's Devontae Booker leading the backfield, Josh Jacobs did not practice on Wednesday. So I think a lot's going to depend on that. But if Devontae Booker goes, lock in Devontae Booker as your guy because I think he's going to be a great piece.
Exactly. I like Derek Carr. I think his mentality's there for him. I think he's ready to go, especially against the Jets. He could easily look good in that game. Another guy I'm going to probably look at possibly is a Ryan Tannehill, like we talked about beforehand. I don't mind Ryan Tannehill without Denzel Ward on the Browns defense, which that's a huge upgrade. Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown, which we'll talk about A.J. Brown and the receivers, of course. But Ryan Tannehill now has an easier matchup against the Browns because, like I said, no Denzel Ward. That opens up a huge spot in the safety field without him. So I'm all in on Ryan Tannehill as a mid-range option, of course. Going down to the values, Mitch Trubisky is now starting for the Bears, which you might can look at him with Allen Robertson because Allen Robertson is going to catch targets from him or Foles no matter what. Who's throwing him the ball? He's basically a guy that you can easily go to in the wide receivers options. But other than that, that's where I'm basically going in the quarterbacks. Who's your value that you like down here?
So I really like my guy Mike Glennon this week. Mike Glennon did a very decent job last week. He had 18 points. And at this price range, honestly, that can cover you for some cash. So I really like Mike Glennon going against Minnesota next week. Minnesota just got in the middle of the pack in terms of playing against quarterbacks. So I think if DJ Chark comes back this week, definitely a Mike Glennon stack with DJ Chark, maybe a Keelan Cole as well to add in there. Wouldn't be a bad move and is definitely going to be under owned. So that's where I'm going in the value spot.
Most definitely, most definitely. Moving on towards the running backs now. So running backs is interesting. We can see a lot of Qs in Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs and Alvin Kamara and DeAndre Swift. A lot of Qs, and still have Gaskin and Mixon on IR, which are waiting to be active, so on and so forth. So this running back situation is going to be interesting to me. What are your thoughts on this upper range in the Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry top 2 tiers?
Yeah, so I mean, Dalvin Cook, he was a guy last week that I was all over. I wouldn't say he busted, but for his price, he kind of busted. I don't know. It
Yeah.
just wasn't really what you wanted out of him. Obviously, did get the injury in the third quarter. Can't really blame him for that. But going against the Jacksonville defense this week, who's honestly been playing the run decently well in the past couple weeks. I'll be getting some Dalvin Cook, but I definitely won't go over the field on it. I do like Derrick Henry this week. Derrick Henry beasted over a Colts defense who everyone was talking about was going to be so good. He had, I think, 40 fantasy points or something like that last week. He was insane. So I really like Derrick Henry here. And then Nick Chubb also is a real beast in there. So I really like the top end running backs this week, Cody.
So it's funny how it literally goes from 9,200 to 7,700. There's no in between. There's no 8K range at all. There's literally a huge
No.
drop off from 92 to 77. That's crazy to me, which I haven't seen in a while, that huge of a drop off in running backs. So that's going to basically open up price ranges for the receivers because you're either going to go high or you're going to go as a value, one of the two, in running backs. So in running backs, though, we have Derrick Henry, who has looked good in the winter. We obviously seen him flash in the winter time more so than the summertime. So we've seen him basically look good in this range. So I don't mind a Derrick Henry at all, especially at 9,200 because you can either pay or you can go low. So I'd rather go Derrick Henry than Dalvin Cook. I think Henry is over Cook more so in this range. If you wanted to pay high, if you wanted to go low, I wouldn't mind a James Robertson. He's looked good. He's got you over 19 touches a game, and they're just feeding him the ball no matter what the circumstance is. He's been basically a good surprise this season by far, which I don't think anybody saw that coming at all. With James Robertson. So I like him a lot in this price range. I like Austin Eckler, who got 16 targets last game and has looked good. I mean, yes, it's the New England defense. I know you're not going to pick him because of the defense. And obviously, it's your team. You're not going to go to him. But I'm certainly going to go to him. I like him a lot. I like Austin Eckler. So Alvin Kamara is the questionable one that I just cannot get to 7,000 for. I can't do this with Taysom Hill. He's just not productive with Taysom Hill whatsoever. It's like he's not a part of the offense anymore at all. I mean, nobody's been talking about him whatsoever ever since Taysom Hill stepped in. I'm just not getting to him. Other than that, who are you liking in this mid 7K range?
Yeah, so you talked about Austin Eckler. He got plenty of targets last week. As a New England fan, I really want to hope that he doesn't have as good of a week as he did last week. But at the same time, if you're a DFS player, you got to put away your home team kind of stances. He got 16 targets last week. I mean, that's a running back, and he's priced at 7-1. I think he's a really good option to go to this week. New England hasn't been great with covering running backs out of the backfield this week. As you said, I'm not getting much Kamara just because of the way the Saints offense has been running. Not so big into that. One guy I really like here is Chris Carson there at 6'3". With him being fully healthy now, going against the Giants, I think Seahawks going to be able to run the ball a ton. I think Chris Carson's going to get a lot of work, and I think this is a really good spot for him. Definitely a spot where you can spend down at running back.
Exactly. So Chris Carson's is interesting to me versus the Giants, but we did see Carlos Hyde take a lot of snaps from him, which that kind of scares me, but I think he can easily take over that role again. And at 63, I don't mind it at all. Other than that, it's a huge drop off to me, basically going from Chris Carson down to a guy like Boston Scott or Jamal Williams. It's a huge
Yeah.
drop off. I mean, that's what scares me. But like we said, the drop off, and then I see value. I see value in David Montgomery, basing the easy Detroit defense that he's
Mm,
just hitting home with how many yards he gets that nobody's seeing. He's underrated, in my opinion, at 5,500. I like that price a lot, and I like the usage rate that he's getting. Like you said with Booker, I can see Booker getting touches if Josh Jacobs is out. If Josh Jacobs is in, I'm not going to Booker though. That's just you. You have to watch that news. Wayne
yep.
Gallman's a guy I wouldn't mind getting to at 5,600 because the value is scarce on this slate. Naeem Hines, I wouldn't mind seeing with Jordan Wilkins banged up and Jonathan Taylor status up in the air because of COVID. But again, watch the status of Jonathan Taylor and watch the status of Jordan Wilkins. Other than that, there's just a nothing here that I like at all. The lowest I would probably go is the David Montgomery. Now, if Naeem Hines, like I said, watch the status for all that. But like I said, David Montgomery's the lowest I'm going. What do you think of this bottom range?
Yeah, so when it comes to Naheem Hines, I think even if Jonathan Taylor is in, I do like Hines at this price because Houston has just not been able to cover running backs out of the backfield. I think the thing is with Hines, if JT is out, Hines is going to be chalk. So in a GPP, I'm not going to get there. But if JT is in, Hines is going to kind of turn into that guy where no one's really looking at him because Jonathan Taylor's leading the backfield. But at the same time, Houston is not a very good defense, obviously. So I think Philip Rivers has been really good with checking down to his running backs this year. That leaves a lot of catches for Naheem Hines. I think he can cover his price easily, even if JT is in. And in terms of anyone else, David Montgomery, as you said, probably has the highest upside if he gets, a couple 2-yard touchdowns at the goal line. Devontae Booker, if there's no Josh Jacobs, I'm really high on him. If Jacobs is out, with him not practicing on Wednesday. So I really like Booker here in this spot. Kareem Hunt honestly did not do as much last week as I thought he would. I thought he was going to get really into it. I actually had a lot of Kareem Hunt shares last week, and that ended up kind of biting me in the ass because he really didn't get
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on a
some
James
extra
White
sets.
sort of guy?
Yeah, James White too. James White definitely got a lot of run last week. I do like him a lot as well.
Moving on towards the wide receivers. So at wide receivers, you can obviously again there's kind of a drop off in a Devontae Adams to a DK Metcalf. I wouldn't mind getting to Devontae Adams if you pair him with Aaron Rodgers. If you don't pair him with Aaron Rodgers, I'm not looking to him as a one-off. In my opinion, I think you have to pair him with Aaron Rodgers, which is typically what you want to do. Obviously, in some cases you can do one-offs, but I mostly do running back as a one-off. I don't do wide receivers mostly as a one-off. So on and so forth. DK Metcalf, I don't mind it. I mean, if you want to get to him, I think the ownership will be pretty high because the last game, which is why I rather pivot up to a guy like Devontae Adams. I'm not really getting to a DK Metcalf this late. Keenan Allen, Hopkins. I mean, like I said, pair your star-studded receiver with your quarterback is where I'm basically going to go. I'm not really trying to get to one of these guys as a one-off, like I was saying earlier. If you play Tannehill, get AJ Brown. You play Herbert, play Allen, so on and so forth. But the two that I wanted to talk about is Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson would be in play if for some reason Adam Thielen doesn't play because of COVID, but all signs are pointing to him as a full go now. So just watch the status for that. Watch the status of Calvin Ridley with Julio Jones because Julio Jones is 6,600. If Ridley's a no go, I like Julio Jones if he's a full go. Either way, watch the status on that game. Allen Robertson's a good option to me, no matter what, because of the price tag. I think he's underrated that price tag, and the targets that he's getting, I think he can prove to you that he's a good option. What are your options on the very top in this range?
Yeah, so I mean, the general rule, tag your receiver with your quarterback. So obviously it depends on who you play quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, you got to play Devontae Adams because Devontae Adams is getting a ton of target share. One guy who I think is interesting this week that I know we haven't really gotten to yet, just because it's not in this price range. If you played Deshaun Watson this week, you got to get Brandon Cooks in there. Brandon Cooks and Kiki Kuti, I think, are the ones to pair with Watson. But if you want to pair Mike Glennon in with somebody, if you want to go with my value pick, which I really think he's gonna, I think he's really gonna bam this week. I think you gotta monitor the stats of GJ Chark. But up top, honestly, it's who you play at quarterback. If you like Kirk Cousins this week, choose between Thielen or Robinson, or sorry, Jefferson, or you could even play both. But just doesn't leave you a lot of options at running back. So pair your star-studded receivers with your quarterback, and that's basically how we got to do it, man.
Well, good thing the Packers didn't sign Will Fuller, so because that would have been interesting seeing that signing and then a sign and trade, then all of a sudden he gets suspended. But fun fact, Brian Cushing is the strength and conditioning coach, and he's been busted for PEDs in the past. So obviously it's a history with the Texans, as y'all can tell. So Jarvis Landry, I don't mind getting to. I mean, he's looked good with a ton of targets with Baker Mayfield finally in a good, decent weather game when he's not playing in a hurricane or monsoons or anything like that, given what he's played in the past. I don't mind Jacoby Myers, but watch out for that. I'd much rather get to a Brandon Cooks. I'd rather go to him. Brandon Cooks is obviously a guy you can go to. Travis Fulgham is not a guy I'm looking at all. I'm not looking at Kirk. I'm not looking at Crowder, Davis, none of those guys. If I had to go with someone as a value, I'll look at Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's a low in value. I like Alan Lazard with the Rodgers stacks. I don't mind that. Henry Ruggs. I mean, you can take a chance on him. T.Y. Hilton at 4,300. I wouldn't mind getting to either if you want to go with Phil Rivers. Other than that, guys, Kiki Kuti is definitely a guy I'm going to look at. For whoever starts as the third receiver for Houston, I might look at or take a chance on. Darryl Mooney, though, at 3,400, still underrated to me and still cheap to me, honestly, with what he gets looked at, basically. Other than that, that's basically where I'm going to go. Do you have any options for values down here in the lower 4K range, 3K range?
Yeah, so like I said, obviously Kiki Kuti, him and Deshaun Watson have some really good rapport. So I really like him there at his price. He doesn't really need too much to hit that 3,500 price tag. I do like Keelan Cole. Keelan Cole and Glennon seemed to click a little bit last week. I'm a little higher on Keelan Cole if DJ Chark plays, because that would take a little bit of the attention off. I would still stack all three if you were going to go with Jaguar stack, which I think is going to be very underowned and a really nice GPP play. But in terms of down here, T.Y. Hilton's a guy who I was really high on last week. He was 3.9, and it ended up paying off nicely for me. If you were going to go with Jaguar stack, which I think is going to be very, but he's kind of a big play kind of guy. Now that Zacchaeus is on IR, it really bums me out because I was high on him last week and he literally played a quarter and then was like, all right, peace, I'm out, see ya. So F your 17 out of 20 lineups that you had me in because Julio Jones is out. So that was just, that was a personal thing for me. Whatever, it happens. Shit moves on. Let's move on next week.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of options here this week. If Larry Fitzgerald stays on the COVID list, Andy Isabella is definitely an option as well. But other than that, not a ton down here.
Exactly. Tight ends, moving over to that side of the ball. Tight ends is always scary now to get to. It feels like I've always just don't know what to do with tight ends. This season's weird to me. Without a Kelsey on the slate, you really don't have a ton of options. Obviously, who are your top options up here in the Darren Waller and TJ Hawkinson range?
Yeah, so Darren Waller was one of the guys last week that everyone was like, all right, well, if Kelsey can't hit his price, Darren Waller will. And then he didn't. So I really don't know what to do with Darren Waller this week. I'm probably going to fade him for the most part just because he's 1,100 more than any other tight end. And with him not being a definite, I think I'm going to, take my chances with like a guy like TJ Hawkinson or Dallas Goedert if Zach Ertz is out. If Fitzpatrick plays, Gesicki is definitely a good option as well. Obviously, Gesicki got a touchdown last week with him. And then Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper is 3,800. He got a touchdown with Baker last week. Obviously, they haven't had a lot of games to really get going because of the weather conditions that you mentioned. So I think Austin Hooper is one guy that's going to be sneaking under the radar this week and could be a very good option for you.
Exactly. Darren Waller is just the guy I cannot get to because of how inconsistent he has been lately. The matchup is good. It's against the Jets, but then again, what are you going to get out of him? We really don't know. TJ Hawkinson is a guy I'm going to look to for sure. I like TJ Hawkinson at the 5,000 price. Evan Ingram, he's seeing targets, but with Colt McCoy starting, do you trust it? I don't, not whatsoever. Hunter Henry, again, inconsistent. You're going to get targets. You're going to get 5 or so targets, but you don't know what you're going to get out of them, yardage-wise or TD-wise. Dallas Goedert is the guy I'm going to probably look to. I like Dallas Goedert at that price. He's getting a ton of targets and looking good. He looked good last game. He was basically the only diamond in the rough for that Eagles team. Last game, he got you 80 yards or so, and he looked decent. I mean, at the targets he was getting, Gesicki is for sure a guy I'm going to look at, especially against the Bengals. Other than that, Hooper, he's touchdown dependent. Robert Tonian, like I said earlier, if you want to do with the Rodgers stacks, I don't mind that at all. Other than that, I'm not going anything below that at all. I'm not. There's no way I probably will hit a Jared Cook or Jimmy Graham or Trey Burton. I can't get to it. Do you like any guys down here before we wrap this video up, my man? Or are you just kind of like not going towards any of these guys? Because I might look at a Richard Rodgers, but other than that, there's nothing down here for me.
Yeah, not a lot down here. If Irv Smith doesn't play, you could look at a Kyle Rudolph maybe. But other than that, really not much down here at all.
Moving on to defenses, who are you liking at the very top for defenses? Because I'm probably going to look at a Dolphins, probably going to look at the Saints, possibly against Matt Ryan. I don't mind that at all. I don't mind going to possibly a Cardinals against the Rams. Other than that, that's pretty much where I'm going, is probably the Dolphins against the Bengals. What about you, my man?
Yeah, like I was gonna say, the Dolphins definitely are probably my primary this week, just because Brandon Allen didn't look great last week. Bengals defense doesn't look, or offense doesn't look explosive at all. Another one I was looking at was the Bears, just because Matthew Stafford's been really inconsistent. We don't really know what's going on with his injuries. He's been questionable every week. Obviously, with him not being 100% healthy, that opens up opportunities for the Bears. And then other than that, really, there's not much. Maybe Seattle's defense, just because, we got Colt McCoy going for the Giants, so that's not going to be anything. Other than that, not a huge option next week, but I like those 3 that I named right there.
Exactly, man. So, do you have any last closing thoughts before we head out of here?
Nah, man, just make sure if you want to go with a different stack this week, it's going to be a Jaguars. It's going to be, one that not a lot of people are going to go with.
Exactly. So that pretty much wraps up for us, guys. Hit the like button for me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit up Daily Fantasy Talk Show on Twitter. He's always on there and active. And that wraps up for us, guys. Hope everybody has a good and safe night. Have a good one, everybody.